Hi, hello, hi. Bit wonky today because I am home in my ancient apartment and the floor itself is wonky. I don't think it's my tripod, but if it feels a little askew to you and things feel not quite straight, well, who is anymore, quite frankly. Anyway, hi, I'm Gail Carriger and I'm live on Facebook at the moment, or not live on YouTube later, and it's gonna be a fun time because in addition to everything else, I don't have a microphone. There are reasons, there's always tech reasons, but there it is. Also, I'm not getting any eyeballs, so I'm not sure this is working. So that's fun. But that's the way it goes. Let me see. If you're watching this and can see me and can hear me, say hi, say hello. Otherwise, maybe I need to restart. Oh, there are 3 eyeballs. Facebook is telling me there are 3 eyeballs. That's very exciting. Hi, Natalie. Yay! Someone is watching. Let me see. June! Oh, wonderful. Good to hear. Because, like I said, there's no microphone today. So, yes, you might hear various bangs and clatterings and things. This is a creaky old house and there are other people in it. So, I hope you think of that as amusing color to our conversation. Today we're supposed to be talking about the writing craft, but I'm happy to talk about anything you want to talk about, as per usual. We just got started. I'm just gonna make sure that this is being shared properly. So excuse me while I try to do 2 things at once, but let me know where you're tuning in from and what part of the world and stuff. It's just so cool for me. It's my favorite thing to know that when I do a live like this, it actually reaches its little visual pause all the way out. Oh, June says I have cats. Good. Everyone should have cats. I'm home, so there's a slight possibility that Miss Lilliput herself might make an appearance. Although she's asleep in the windows in a sunbeam, so highly doubtful. But that's cats for you. It can't be relied upon for anything. Let me see what Facebook is doing. Oh, more people. Hi, everybody. We are waiting for Gail to figure out what's going on with her live because it doesn't seem to be working properly, or maybe it's just a slow, quiet day today. Yeah, I can't see my own video, but that's sort of normal. Heaven forfend Facebook actually serve the video out to people who might want to watch it. That would be too easy for everybody. Okay, well, I'm just gonna have to hope. So share away if you can. Share it into the group, please, the mods and all that sort of stuff. So anybody who wants to see it can see it. And meanwhile, hi everybody. I'm back here in a place where it's actually winter, which is very surreal for me, or at least as winter as California gets, which admittedly is not particularly winter by most standards. Katie says the only thing that works here is us. True, that is the only thing that works. Hello. Hi to everybody tuning in. Would you like to see Lily? I can go grab her if you want. I can disturb the cat if you want. Why don't I disturb the cat? Keep tuning in and I'll go grab the cat. Oh, protestations. Oh, she's not happy. That's what I get for disturbing a cat. Bean, come back here. Come here. Oh, no, she's just glaring at me. If I had a treat, she'd be all over it, but I don't have a treat on me. Very, stomach orientated, our cat. Come here. Cats. Oh, you're fine. Yes, you're fine. Here she is. Yes. This is the Bean. Yeah, very rarely does a cat appear on my lives because I'm usually doing them from the office where there are no cats. There are plenty of plants, but no cats. Because these 2 things, of course, cannot exist. Cannot coexist. I'm not allowed to have plants and cats. I can have only one or the other in any given space. Yes, you're fine. Oh, you're totally fine. Now she's gonna go back to her Yes, hi. She's gonna go back to her window, I imagine. Welcome back, says Sue. Thank you. I had a lovely, lovely time. It is very good to be back. I hope you have enjoyed your brief Lilliput visitation. It's probably all you're gonna get. Yes, it was very nice to come back to Lilliput. She is, well, I guess happy to have me back. Who knows with cats. And yeah, I am not doing NaNoWriMo. For those of you who have followed me over the years, I have tried to do NaNoWriMo, I think 3 times? 3 times. And just failed every time. And therefore, I sort of gave up. Yeah, I failed in that I can't make the 50,000. One time I did manage to finish the project I was working on, which was the goal I had set myself, but that still wasn't 50,000. So I just can't manage to write 50,000 words in the month of November, it seems like. Annabelle asks if I brought Lilliput any gifts, and no, I did not. Yeah, she's just happy to have me back, quite frankly. I got lots of flops and lots of lap, and now we're just back to normal. But yes, it was her birthday recently. I guess she is 14, maybe 13, maybe 12. I don't know, somewhere in there. She's a teenager by our years. She's an old lady by her years, I suppose. So she had a birthday and got lots of catnip and lots of playtime, which is what she really wants in life. But yeah, I don't get punished. My cat doesn't punish when you leave her for, my mom's cat will do that, but my cat will not. So she's just happy to have me back and to have her lap back, which is all I am to her. I am but furniture to my cat. That's all she cares about. Yes. So old lady cat, yeah, she has a very croaky voice these days. It's very funny. Sue asks questions. Please ask questions. We're just gonna jump into it. I've had a day already. I had a meeting with my writers group, then I had a board meeting for the writers group, and then I had an interview already. So I've had quite a busy Saturday. So yes. Sue asks, did I bring back any souvenirs for myself? Mostly food. I brought back a bunch of ramen I wanted to try that's just like ramen that is mysterious because it's all in Thai. So I was like, that looks like it might taste good. I'll give that a try. So I had that as sort of a stratigraphic layer of ramen in my suitcase. Then I had a lot of like snacks and things that I loved that I wanted to share with people. So I had a friend gathering last night and I took a bunch of yummy snacks and things down there so they could try those. And then I'll take some more out to Thanksgiving for my parents to try and relatives and friends there. But yeah, I'm not really a collector of stuff or souvenirs or anything like that. It's mostly consumables for me. I travel in order to eat and I bring back food. Seems to make sense in my corner of the universe. I do, by request, I have a couple of people in my life who requested specifically little tchotchkes or whatever, and for them I will bring back objects, but in general, I don't really collect items like that. So yeah, I didn't bring any souvenirs back. Suzanne asks, at what age did I know I wanted to be a writer? I think I am one of those authors who answers this question by simply saying, I always wrote. Like, it just never occurred to me not to be a writer. My mom used to read out loud to me, and if I didn't like the ending of the book, I would tell her that she had got it wrong, or the author had, and then I would rewrite it for her out loud, and I was like, Mom, you should have known. I always listened to audiobooks. I always read books as soon as I could, and then I was writing them pretty much immediately after that. And always with atrocious spelling. I've never had good spelling. I'm a terrible speller. My reading comprehension isn't good, but I'm a fast reader, so, you know, I kind of bucket words in my brain. So yeah, so I'm a terrible speller, but fortunately technology helps a bit with that now. Yeah, so I always wrote, but I didn't think I was ever gonna be an author, a professional full-time writer, because I did grow up in a kind of disenfranchised, kind of hippie community with a lot of poets, and they always seemed to be poor. And I was like, well, this doesn't seem like a practical career path, being a creative, let alone a writer. So yeah, so I was in hot pursuit of a PhD when my first book got picked up. But I did always write, even though I was an academic and even though I was doing social science and other stuff, I was always writing. And once I finished something, I was like, I might as well try to get published. So I collected all of the rejections and sent it out and collected more rejections and stuff like that. And then eventually Soulless got picked up, and then everything changed after that. Actually, to be fair, everything changed after Changeless did well and hit the New York Times. Then things really changed. Yeah, and I actually stayed an academic for several years into being a writer because I wasn't sure if it was a solid career move to become a full-time independent agent without, you know, a university or a corporation or anything. I'm still a little surprised this is where I ended up, but delighted to be here, that's for sure. Jackie asked, did anything inspire me during my travels? Actually, I was just talking about this on the podcast interview, and this has sort of sparked I think this is a concept or an idea that will either creep into one of my books in the not too distant future, or it might become some kind of new series. But I've been thinking a lot about, because I was there eating and I was tasting foods, and occasionally I would like eat something or smell something that reminded me of the past in a really strong way, even though I was in a place I'd never been before, eating foods I'd never had before. And it reminded me something of which we're all very familiar, which is that the smell and taste sensation are more connected to memory than other senses in general, particularly smell. And how, you know, walking in and smelling something, it'll be like, oh, that's, suddenly I'm transported back to my grandmother's house or something. And it occurred to me to wonder as a sci-fi fantasy author whether that could actually happen, right? If you smell something that's so exactly the scent of a moment of childhood, if you could travel back in time because of that scent, or if you were a good enough like cook or perfumer or something, if you could engender that in others, if you could manipulate quantum reality and space-time through the sense of flavor and scent. And so that, of course, made me want to write a whole thing about that and about like what if, you know, there's a very strong core in Asian dramas over red threads and the linking of previous lives. And they're always linked to each other where you have dreams of your previous lives. And I was like, what if it's not dreams? What if it's dishes? What if it's foods? And what if it's smells? And what if you find somebody who you knew in the past via a scent or a dish that they cook in the present? And you can have this sort of reconnecting of lifelines via those two the taste and smell sensation rather than the visual element. It's really funny, having come off a series where I just wrote an entire series about the visual and about, you know, the immersive nature of visual and sound. Suddenly I'm traveling through Thailand and thinking about taste and smell, which I guess is not illogical to have dwelled in one arena for a while to now kind of be leaning into a different one. But yeah, that was one of the things that got sparked while I was there. And I'm not sure if that will, it doesn't seem to, like, that concept in the amorphous way that I'm kind of unpacking it and thinking about it doesn't necessarily fit very well into any of my current universes. And I do prefer to write in one of the 3 sandboxes. So it's on the back burner. Like with anything kind of high concept that I come up with, I tend to leave it to germinate until characters really sing at me within the sphere of that concept, and then I will start to write the thing. So at the moment, it's just germinating. But that was one of the things that I definitely thought about while I was there. Yes, apparently red is the color of the season. What are they calling it? Cherry Girl Fall or something absolutely ghastly like that. But yes, I do love red, so I'm happy to be on trend. Yes, this is, before anybody asks, I did put it in the description, but this is the lippy I'm wearing today. It's not my normal one. It's Ink Airy Velvet by a brand called PeriPera, which is a Korean PeriPera, which is a Korean brand. Yes, so I named it above. I didn't drop a link, but I think it's still available most places. I like it. As you can see, it's kind of a satin matte, but comes off and everything. And that's one of the reasons I'm wearing it, is I need to be able to take it off, because after you guys, I gussy up and immediately go jump in a car and go down because I have an in-person event tonight at Mountain View at a bookstore. So I know it's been forever since I've done one of those, or at least it feels like years since I've done a bookstore thing. So I need to put on my proper in-person lipsticks. I have to be able to take off this one. So normally I wear like Color Stay lipsticks, but it's been such a long day today of talking online that I just wore a lipstick I could keep touching up. But thank you for commenting about me being on trend. Yes, as Sue is very kindly reminding everybody, please put a question mark at the beginning of your question so that I can scan through the comments and know that you've asked a question. And today, like theoretically, we're going to be talking about writing and the craft of writing and being a writer, becoming a writer, coming up with characters, any kind of questions you have about writing or author life. The business side, if you want to ask me about that too. But frankly, you know me, I'm usually happy to answer any questions you have, unless they're like terrible spoilers, but you know, I don't really have a lot in progress that I can spoil for you at the moment. Everybody admitting to the fact that they can't spell. I'm very glad that I'm in such company. If you follow me on social media, you will see me not spelling regularly because I type too fast. Lavender asks, do I have holiday plans? Oh, right. So, yeah, shall we talk about that? Thanksgiving is a big deal in my family. It is oddly a big deal for my very British mother. She came here and embraced Thanksgiving as only a strange expat British woman could, mostly because of the food. It is the kind of food she is very good at cooking. She is legitimately a great roaster of the bird and the vegetables. We do roasted potatoes because British. And so she loves it. She likes hosting and she likes having a lot of people around her and she likes providing food to people. So it very much is like in line with her personality. So, and she's an expat. So when she first came over here, she just adopted everybody. So I have always had Thanksgiving with groups of adopted family, adopted siblings, adopted uncles and aunties, lots of uncles and aunties, you know, lots of queer folk who are disenfranchised from their families and all that sort of a thing because my mom was like, come, I will feed you. It is love, come be. So Thanksgiving has never been a like trying family thing for me, as I know it is for many, because it was always just found and adopted family. So, and I love it because of that. So it's very important to me. I always try to get home to specifically my mom's for Thanksgiving. And yeah, my mom has over the years added to the actual family. So I have essentially what amounts to sibs and nibblings and all that sort of a thing now. And her partner is Jamaican, so there's like super delicious jerk sauce at the table, and then my mom's chutney, and then you know we're California and we're in the northern California, so it's Dungeness, it's crab season, so we always have crab and champagne to start because why not? And then of course it's beautiful weather, so we're always like outside on the porch hanging out in the garden and stuff. It's very like a quirky kind of event, but it is an event. There's usually like 24 to 28 people, so it's pretty big. And it's potluck, so everybody brings yummy stuff and we have crazy desserts. So yeah, Thanksgiving is my favorite, I would say, especially now as I've gotten older and I don't get to see these people very often. So yeah, it's fun. And you never know. It's definitely one of those events where you're like, there are some core people that are going to be there, but like you never know, someone else might come or not. So yeah. So that's it is my holiday. I don't really do much for the rest of any other holidays anymore. Sometimes I'll throw parties on the 4th, but that's mostly just because everybody else has vacation. Suzanne asks, do I add Easter eggs in your books? They're reading Divinity 36, and I have mentioned S-class a few times. That's just the classification system for how genetically manipulated the aliens are. I'm sorry, Facebook's not letting me see more of your questions, so I don't know what the end of your question is, Suzanne. But I do have Easter eggs in my books, but it sounds like the S-Class you're picking up on might be an Easter egg for some other IP that I'm not familiar with. Yeah, that's just me. Sue says, I love your nail polish. Thank you, Sue. I took a photograph and stuck it up on Instagram and stuff because I was very charmed with it. This is not the normal kind of thing I do with my nails, but I just went in there and I was like, I feel grungy. Do something kind of sci-fi organic or something. So this is what I got. It's just for fun. I'm sorry. Yes, there might be some technical difficulties. As I was saying when I started this, I'm at home, which is very abnormal, and I don't have a mic, so there's sort of going to be ambient noise, and frankly the internet's not been as good here as it has been at the office recently. Yeah, I'm sorry if things aren't in sync. It's not my fault. It's Facebook's fault. Suzanne wants to know what I think about ChatGPT. I don't, really. Sorry. I had a friend who was playing with it, stick in, write something in the style of Gail Carriger or whatever, and it was not successful in that endeavor, ChatGPT. I mean, the AI thing I'm sort of loosely paying attention to because there will probably be lawsuits, and I have such a corpus at this juncture in terms of how much content I've put out that it's pretty much guaranteed that my books will be used to feed the machine. So if there's a class action lawsuit I need to be involved in, then I have to pay attention to that. And of course, my agent is always paying attention to those sorts of things too. I changed the TOS on my website, but that's pretty much where I am. I'm the other part of me, the social science part of me, is believe it or not, a technologist. So my PhD was on the evolution of ceramic technology. That's what I study. I study how the ancients changed ceramics, and how ceramics changed and evolved, and whether the technological innovations that occurred were how those were caused in cultures, whether it is from contact between cultures, whether it is one person inventing a thing, those sorts of, that's what interested me, is how technological innovation occurred in the past. But it means that I'm very used to this, right? There's always technological upset. There's always something going on. So, I'm pretty sanguine. I don't, it's hard to get me super upset or offended by things like this. So my attitude tends to be, oh, what's happening today? What's going on today in the world of tech? So yeah, I'm not optimistic, but I'm not pessimistic either. I'm just letting it do its thing, and we'll see what happens. Lavender says, is it safe to ask Dome 6 questions? I think it's safe to ask them so long as you can couch them in non-spoilery terms. Generally speaking, we usually wait a month, but I guess it's all pretty much been a month. But in this particular case, I know some people waited to read all 3 books until all 3 were out. So they would have had to read 3 books in a month. And I can do that, and I know many of you can do that, but I know not everybody can do that. So maybe we should hold spoilery questions for another month, but you can try if you can phrase it in a non-spoilery way, and I'll simply say whether I think it's something I should talk about or not. Courtney asks, I like being self-published better than traditional. I honestly do think that there's something to recommend either path, and it very much depends on your personality. I am a bit of a control freak, and so I do like self-publishing a lot. I do like to have all the power in terms of when things are uploaded, at what time, what the cover art looks like. Everything is entirely within my locus of control. But the downside is I'm kind of meticulous. I'm very spreadsheet oriented, and so it means that I do get kind of caught into the minutia, and I forget that also it's my job to write the next book. I do have to write things. I like the business side of it sometimes a little bit too much, and so I'll get stuck in that mode for a while. So the traditional side did free me up for more writing and also imposed rather strict deadlines on me to write, which I respond well to. I respond well to deadlines. I'm somebody who's always tried to make their deadlines and impose, whether it's self-imposed or not, it tends to work for my personality. So yeah, so you know, it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Like right now, traditional publishing seems a little crazy. It seems even harder than ever to get a traditional publishing contract. You know, they're doing a lot of reshuffling. Editors are getting fired. People are moving around. Publishing houses are consolidating. It's kind of crazy right now. So I'm very happy that I have self-publishing to fall back on, and I'm not dependent on a traditional publishing contract for my income. That's for sure. So there's, you know, that aspect to consider as well. For me personally, I think I slightly prefer self, but I haven't had a traditional contract in a while, so who knows? Oh, Suzanne says, oh, Suzanne. Sorry, Suzanne is explaining. Divinity is K-pop inspired and S-Class is the new Stray Kids album, which is true and totally charming and entirely coincidental. But if you would like to claim that I preemptively somehow knew that that's what they were going to call their album, I'll take it. Yeah, I forgot that. That was really funny. No, in classic writerly fashion, I wrote these books like years ago, right? Or, you know, I wrote them in the middle of the pandemic. So, and that's when I came up with the alien classification system. So, yeah, Stray Kids were like 6 albums ago when I wrote these books. So, and I'm not that good at foreseeing the future, especially not in the K-pop industry. But if you want to pretend like it, I'll take it. Rodney asks if I can talk about self-publishing with an agent. Sure. So my agent is a literary agent, and she came on board to represent me when I had my first book contract. And she specializes, as most literary agents do, in traditional contracts and traditional publishing. So she and my career came at the same time, and we started together. She was relatively young as a new agency. And we've been together for 15 years now, so it seems to be working out well. But she, my agent in particular, is quite forward-thinking, and she actually took on authors who had self-published first. So Hugh Howey is one of her authors, and he's a big self-published author who then went to traditional, and she reps people like him. So when I started to entertain and talk about doing some self-publishing, she already had a stable of authors that included authors who were very well versed in this. Some of whom were repped by her as traditional and had transitioned to doing mostly self, or like me, were considering the hybrid model. So she is an agent who's very familiar with this. And the way it works between us, and every author and agent have different relationships, but this is the way we've worked it out, is if it's a project that I think Trad might be interested in. So with these books, I gave her this one. I gave her the first one in the Divinity series, and I basically said, let's try for a year to see if somebody's interested in publishing them and go from there. So she actually did an edit pass on this book and had me change a couple of things, and then she shopped it. She took it out on submission and to see if anybody was interested, and nobody was. Not for what I would cost, I think, is part of it. I'm expensive as a front list author. So, and then I pinged her at the end of the year and I said, your time is up. If it's on any editor's desks anymore who haven't responded, it's time to say, you know, this book is no longer on offer because I'm going to bring it out. And then that was when I started to prepare to bring them out and started releasing them. So, and that's which tells you, since this one came out in August, it tells you how long it takes to put them through that process. So it had to go through developmental edits, copy edits, and then cover art design and all that sort of stuff. I had to get all of those contract workers in place. I had to line everybody up. I get everybody scheduled. So that's why it then takes another 6 months to actually bring the book out. But then I brought them out very quickly because I had all my ducks in the row. So, and then when a book releases that's self-published, I let my agent know. So once I've written a book, I usually let her know. If it's something that I don't want submitted, I just tell her up front. So if I write a new San Andreas book or something, I'll just be like, I've written a new San Andreas book. You know, those are explicitly for the self-published market. I never intended to shop those at all. So I'll just tell her that I've written the book. I will actually send her an email with the asset attached. So with the document attached, so that she has a copy. So there's someone else in the world who has a copy of that finished manuscript. And also so she has it in case any foreign translation rights are inquired about for that book. And that has happened with me. So occasionally someone will ping my agent because they want to translate one of my indie books. And so it's better if my agent just has all the assets up front. And I usually send her the book blurb and a link to where it's on my website and all that sort of information. And then she just has that and keeps that. And then I move on to the next project. Yeah, so that's pretty much how it works. I involve her if I think or if we think it's something that Trad might be interested in, and I tell her a fait accompli if it's not. And she just says, got it, or whatever. So that's how it works. And that's just me. The other thing is I will often tell my traditional publisher, the editor at that house, who worked with me or is working with me, about a new book within that universe. So for example, when I bring out a new Parasolverse book, I'll often tell my editor at Little Brown or at Orbit that there's a new book in that universe that released. I don't have to offer it to them, it's not under option. And I'll usually tell both my agent and them at the same time. But I figure it's just polite because they might see a spike in sales or something as a side effect of that, and I don't want them to be surprised or not ready to serve that market if it pops open again. So they're also usually told. I just think it's only polite since they have the sort of IP for the first sets of books in that universe. I mean, it's a pleasant surprise, one would hope, but I just want to let them know. Jackie asks the very open-ended question, are authors still having issues with Amazon with self-published books? And the answer is yes. We are always having issues with Amazon. They're a bully, and they're always bullying us. We're easy to bully because we need them, because most readers are Amazon readers. And they're super nasty to authors. They charge us for things that they shouldn't charge us for. They will make you change the price on your book if they feel like it. They will kick you out if they feel like it. Their latest trick has been to systematically decrease how much money we are getting for audiobooks. So we used to be paid relatively well for audiobooks, and now we're being paid extremely badly by Audible for audiobooks, extremely badly. And then they'll run sales for you guys in Audible, and they'll take that from us, the authors. They don't take it. Never think that Amazon is taking a hit for anything. It's always passed along to the authors. So if a book is on sale for a cheaper than normal, it means the author is not taking home less money. It has nothing to do with how much money Amazon is taking home. They're always taking home. They pay themselves first, we'll put it that way. So yeah, Amazon's terrible. Sorry to say that they're, I mean, I'm sure you've dealt with it. As a consumer from Amazon, they're also unpleasant from that side of the equation, and getting more so. They're no longer interested in serving customers. They're just interested in paying their stockholders now. So I think you should expect us to be the first vanguard of unpleasant experiences with Amazon, and you as readers and consumers it's going to get really bad. It's going to be unpleasant going forward. Yay, good times. Yeah, they're terrible. But, you know, frankly, all vendors are a little bit crap. Everybody has flaws and problems and issues and frustrations. Amazon's the biggest one, and they're bullies, so they're the biggest problem, but, you know, everybody kind of sucks. Everything. Oh, I don't mean to be depressing. But yeah. Hannibal asks, will you write novellas about retired gods like you did with the Parasol? Like what happens to Tillum when they go on to their next. Yeah, I think that would be fun. I hadn't thought about it, but that would be really, really fun. Particularly thinking about the medical ship. That was definitely me setting up a thing I'd love to write about. Obviously, you can always tell when I'm doing that. At least I think you can tell when I'm doing that. Suzanne asks, do I have a daily schedule that forces you to write? Pretty much, yeah. When I'm, right now, I'm letting myself kind of like come back to life here because it's been a bit of a shock to the system. But once I like have my discipline back in order and my daily routine back running, yes, I do have a routine. I'm a routine-based personality. Again, not everybody is like this. Every author is different, but I like scheduling. And I've learned over the years when I write best. And for me, that's early afternoons. So I tend to do business in the mornings, email, that sort of thing, take a solid break for lunch, sometimes relocate, get myself a cup of tea, and then I'll start writing around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I write until I've hit my word count, and then I'm done for the day, usually. I mean, you'll see me on social media or something in the evenings, but yeah, that's usually how I do it. And I usually write 4 days a week. And I can do 8 to 10,000 words a week on that kind of schedule. And I'd like to get myself to a place where I'm dictating a good portion of those words, but that's been a struggle to learn that technology. I'm trying, but I'm starting to have, you know, repetitive stress and things like that from just typing so much all the time. So I need to seriously start to safeguard my hands, and dictation seems the best way to do that. So I'm working on that as well. But that, yeah. So also being in a place that's quiet and I don't have to be self-conscious while I'm talking out loud, that also is kind of important as part of that process these days. So yeah, which is tough for me because I'm a relatively social writer and actually really enjoy like writing in cafes and things like that. And obviously dictating is opposed to that idea. So, but you know, I'm learning and evolving and changing all the time, or at least I'm trying to. But I do have a schedule that's mostly based on the kind of cadence rhythms of my own creativity and mood, I guess is what I would say. And sometimes I have to prod it and test it and see if that still works, because 15 years in, what worked for me when I started out on this journey doesn't necessarily work for me anymore. Lavender wants to know if I think the recent price hikes in ebooks is more a catch-up to the market value or something more. I haven't noticed this in particular. I have noticed authors talking about it. So those of us who control our price points, yes, it's to catch up to inflation. So, I mean, I came back from my trip and paid $7 for a latte recently, and I was like, well, I guess a $4.99 ebook is a little underpriced by that comparison. So yes, in terms of the price hike in ebooks, I think, yeah, it's just trying to catch up. Also, I think as we get more and more like chat and AI generated junk content, the price point is going to be a distinguisher. So, you know, like you're going to, as an ebook consumer, especially if you're in KU or whatever, you're going to have to look at the front cover price of books to start to try to understand whether it's going to be even readable or not. So I think that's probably something that's also entering the system in a way. But yeah, I honestly think it's probably just inflation. But I don't know the particulars of what you're referring to, since I personally haven't noticed. Lavender, what you're noticing might be specific authors or a specific publishing house that just went through and blanket like upped the prices on everything. And I don't maybe follow that publishing house or those authors, so I personally haven't noticed. Yeah, print has, yes. Paperbacks I can speak to completely. So there are 2 paperback production houses that we as indie authors have access to. It's pretty much the same printing presses that, aside from elite and specialist presses, it's the same printing presses that traditional publishers are also using. So we're all using the similar printing presses, etc. Amazon controls some of them, and then a distributor called Ingram controls the others, mostly here in the United States. And both of them have raised prices on print. So they basically raised how much it costs us per page to print a thing, to put the paper and the ink, like the actual physical items. They have raised how much those cost. And so print, it just costs more. Ingram also lowered the distribution cost that's a complicated, lowered the distribution percentage, which also means we have to increase costs. So it's a lot, there's a lot of stuff going on that means that, and this was kind of inevitable because there was the big paper crunch during lockdown. And then it seems like the global distribution systems for print has never really caught back up to that, or they're never going to, or inflation or costs of production and costs of labor and costs of, paper and that sort of thing have never gone back down to pre-pandemic levels. And so it just costs more to print a book. That was a very long way of saying that. It costs more to print a book. It costs more to ship a book, which means books are more expensive now. And that's not going to change. The printed book is more expensive. Suzanne asks, how do you get paid for library books? Oh, that's a good question. I never thought that. Of course, you guys don't know that. Essentially, for printed library books, it costs the library pretty much what it costs anybody else. They can buy a printed book and put it into their collection. For indie authors, for traditional publishing houses, they will sometimes have library editions, which are specially kind of super bound versions, usually hardback versions that have like extra special glue to sort of keep the book together. In other words, they do these like durable versions of the books so that they can go through a lot of people reading them and dropping them and abusing them. So there is such a thing as a library edition, it's called. But for most of us, for print editions, it's just the libraries have access to the same books that you as readers have access to. In terms of ebooks, basically when we upload the book for distribution, and it's going to be a distributor who's not Amazon. So this is like Draft to Digital is one of these distributors, or you can work directly with a Canadian company called Kobo, and Kobo submits to Overdrive, and they own Overdrive. Overdrive is Libby. So if you use the Libby app, you're using Kobo, and Kobo is Rakuten, which is a Japanese company. So the in and outs of the publishing world. Anyway, and they have a library distribution. And the way we do it from our end is we uploaded it just like we would upload it for sale, but we upload it to the library. So there's like a library section where it says, would you like your book to go into Overdrive? Or if you're in Draft to Digital, it lists some of the other library options. And I'm sorry, like Bibliotech or something. Like, I don't remember what some of the other ones are called. And then there's a library price. So the libraries pay a different price for an ebook than you would pay to own that ebook on your device. And it's usually more because the library is going to be distributing it to multiple people. And it's kind of, the way it works is it's kind of like a rental or a licensing fee, but it doesn't reoccur. It's just a one-shot deal. So usually the price that a library pays for the ebook, because assuming it's going to go out to many, many people, is 2 or 3 times the regular digital price. That's kind of where we've settled industry-wise. And then in traditional publishers for ebooks, it's different. They have different deals going with the libraries, and they will, re-up the charge every year. So like it is more like a licensing fee that the library is paying for that ebook, and stuff like that. But we don't have, indie book publishers don't have that level of control. Yes, Karen is saying that they use Draft to Digital to distribute to Amazon, and that is an option. If you find a middleman that you really like, you can just work with that middleman and it's fine. But it does take a very large cut from my perspective, since such a large portion of my digital readers are coming via Amazon. The fact that Draft to Digital charges an additional fee for distribution on top of that means that I lose way too much money to use D2D as a middleman, so I deal directly with Amazon. I also I was complaining about them, but also, I'm used to dealing with tech companies. I also worked in tech for a while. I used to QA educational software and stuff. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. When I started motorcycle riding, and yes, I'm an ex-motorcycle rider. I no longer have a machine, but I did ride for 20 years. And when I was first learning to ride a motorcycle, I remember my friend turning to me and saying, look, here's the thing. Every car on the road is trying to kill you. They don't see you, and they're trying to kill you. And so if you manage to avoid an accident, and there's no point in getting mad at the car, because the car is doing its job. The car is trying to kill you. It's your job to avoid being killed. Like, in other words, be very defensive. And I kind of feel that way about dealing with Amazon and other vendors. It's their job to make money. And that's what they're doing. They're trying to make money. And they're going to take advantage of me and authors like me because they want to make money. That's all they care about. They don't care about me. They're not vested. There's no loyalty in this scenario. So it is my job to play defense and to try to use them for distribution to the best of my ability, to try and get what I can out of them and the platform that they've built for me to get my books out into the world, and not be mad when they try to take advantage of me, because they're just doing their job and I just have to do my job and I have to play defense. And that's basically how I feel about it most of the time. So other authors will be freaking out because Amazon's done something, or, you know, and I'm just like, yeah, I kind of expect Amazon to do that. Like, you know, we just expect it. And so I've done a lot of things to play defense. One of those is talk to you guys on lives and reminding you that I'm a real person behind these books who's writing them, not a machine. One of them is setting up direct sales on my website so that you don't have to buy from Amazon. You can legitimately, anywhere in the world, if you don't have an Amazon account or whatever, you can get it on Kobo, you can get it on Barnes & Noble, but you can also come directly to me. And if you're in a part of the world where there is no Amazon, because those do exist, you can always just buy my book directly from me, from my website. So those are the kinds of like defensive tools I have in my kit, and I try to apply them pretty regularly. And I am one of those authors where something goes terribly, terribly wrong, and my first instinct is like, okay, they tried to kill me, they're doing their job, right? Like, okay, I'm still alive. How can I turn this to an advantage? Is there a way I can use this? Is there a way I can activate you? Can I talk to my fans to help me? And those of you who are in my fan group in particular, you've seen me do this. There have been a couple of times where I've been like, it's too complicated to explain. I'm in a pitched battle right now with Amazon or somebody else. Would you guys do this very strange thing? And that's usually me trying to pivot in some way, trying to figure out if I can turn this at all to an advantage, knowing that we're all trying to do our jobs, right? So yeah. Well, this got a lot more like ins and outs indie businessy than I thought. June asks, speaking of audiobooks, I've become obsessed with Kurt Graves. Yay, isn't he great? Will he be doing the Divinity series? He will not. But thank you for asking. No, Kurt does for those of you who don't know, Kurt Graves is my narrator. He's wonderful. He's my narrator for my San Andreas Shifters book, because he has this sort of lovely, gravelly, mellow voice that I just love his voice. But for me personally, he didn't suit the vocality of these books. He doesn't sound like Fex to me, to be frank, as a POV character. So I have a different narrator, but I think you will love. And yes, I've used him before. So, yes, I love Kurt to death. But I might have, if the person I wanted wasn't available, I might have asked Kurt if he was available. But no, I think Kurt really suits those books very, very well. But he's never done any of my sci-fi. Karen asks if I have music writing lists or if I prefer total silence. So if you go into, it's actually the latest blog post I posted a blog post that if you scroll down, there's YouTube playlists for these books, because these books are all about music, and I did pretty much mainline K-pop while I was writing these. So while I was writing these ones, there was K-pop on in the background. And I think that in part worked really well for me because I don't speak Korean. So I wasn't distracted by lyrics or anything. Because when I do listen to music, it tends to have to be either ambient music or classical music or something that has no English words in it. So I'll get distracted by lyrics if I speak the language that's being sung in. So yeah, but mostly I'm an ambient sound person. So like cafe noises, those sorts of things are what I prefer to write to, or relative silence. I don't require complete silence. I don't need noise canceling headphones or anything to write. Like, I'm actually pretty good at writing on planes, for example, because the sort of white noise of the plane, but also like people chatting and talking and, you know, a little child crying over there in the corner or whatever, like that kind of works fine for me for writing. I don't know why. It's just the way it is, I guess. Yeah, Clay's talking about Katie struggling to shift to dictation, and I know her. We've had quite a few conversations, and yeah, it's rough. Dictation activates a different part of your brain, and I realize that is interesting, and that has actually changed some of my style of writing. Occasionally when I dictate, I'm more likely to dictate sort of narrative parts than I am dialogue parts, because if I try to dictate dialogue, it doesn't sound like how I want the characters to sound, whereas if I type the dialogue, it does. Weird, but there it is. So yeah, there's some things with dictation, but at the very least, I need to transition myself to dictating all of my nonfiction. So comments on Facebook and emails and like any nonfiction I write, I have to start dictating. If I have to save my hands for fiction, then that's what it has to do for me. So we'll figure it out, I promise. What will I be working on next? Asks Sue, and will my travels be included? So like I said, like the travels definitely sparked some creative ideas, but I don't think I'm setting the next book in Thailand. I actually don't know. So I'm in the middle of Draughty Dilemma right now, and when I finish that out, I don't know what's next. I'm kind of leaving it up in the air to see what inspires me. This is the really wonderful thing about being mostly indie now, is I don't have a contract. Nobody's breathing down my neck to write something. So, and I have these sandboxes that I've written for myself. So we'll get to see what I want to write in next. Will I want to go back to sci-fi? Will I want to do a Parasolverse? There's definitely that possibility as well. So yeah, I still have the next Claw and Courtship book to write, and then yeah, plenty of projects. They're all kind of stewing and on the back burner at the moment, and I just need to like let them simmer for a while, and then I'll turn around and I'll start tasting them all and see which flavor profile I want to develop and serve up to you. Annabelle wants a patisserie-centric trilogy. I have to. I mean, I spend so much time eating, and I love food so much. It's ridiculous at this juncture that I haven't really written a series that like is food centered. Like, I mean, I have it occasionally. I have characters that cook or whatever, but you know, it seems very silly that I haven't done so. You're absolutely right. What am I doing with my life? That I haven't written a food centric book yet. Madness. Amazon be Amazoning, said Lavender, which you've never typed anything truer in your life, my darling. Suzanne asks, when I was working for the first time, when did you, when you were working full time, when I was working full time, when did you write? When I was, when I was still career academic. Yeah. Well, that was bad because I was just typing and working. I was pipetting acids and doing whatever freaking scientific experiment I was doing at the time with technology and ceramics and and ancient things and sticking them into machines that go beep. That was mostly what was going on the day. So micro movements with hands and stuff, and then typing up my results, and then typing into spreadsheets, and then typing and typing and typing, and then typing up my thesis, and then I would go home, and guess what I would do? I would type. I would write Solus, then I would write on the weekends. And eventually my nerves went, and I went to see a specialist who was like, guess what you can't do? You cannot write all the time. So yeah. When I was a full-time academic, I was writing fiction wherever I could, in the evenings, on the weekends, on holidays, on planes. Right, as an archaeologist, so I was always flying to digs or what have you. Well, I was often doing long haul flights, so I'd be writing in there. Yeah, I was writing all the time. I always describe writing as somewhat like breathing for me. I don't think there'll ever be a time where I can't, or where I won't or can't write fiction. Like I have to write it. Like the voices need to get out, okay? But that was pretty untenable, and fortunately or unfortunately for me, Soulless and then Changeless kind of made that decision for me, where I just switched careers for one where I still write a lot, but I don't have to try to balance both. I was also not writing as much. So, you know, I was writing one book every 2 or 3 years. Now I write, you know, a book a year at least, sometimes more. I usually write one book, one novella or short something or other, and one additional project a year. That's what I try to do. I try to, you know, keep things coming. So yeah, so one of the things I did less when I was a full-time day job was write, because it had to fit in around my life. So I'm just scrolling through to see if there are other questions. How are we doing for time? Let me look at the... Oh, we have 5 minutes. So any last questions, please ask them, and then I'm going to run through the ones that we've got really quickly to try to get us out of here on schedule. Because like I said, I have to run off, I have to trot off to an event. Classical music, what's your favorite? I'm a Liszt fan in general, but I'm pretty egalitarian in what kind of classical I like. So because I did like historical reenactments, I have like sort of string quartets of old stuff, and it'll go all the way up to like, you know, when the waltz gets introduced or what have you. When I'm doing the Parasolvers, I'll tend to lean on, you know, music from the Victorian era, for example, just played by whatever I can get a hold of, Boston Philharmonic or what have you. Yeah, I went to a undergraduate that had a musical college attached to it, so I got a pretty fun sideline musical education simply because I would go to concerts all the time to support my friends who were there at the music college who were musicians. And so that's what got me into classical music. But I'm not really a wonk about it. I don't go to the symphony, and I don't really like have conductors I follow or particular composers or anything like that. I'll just put it on and hope it works. Tends to be the kind of thing that I'll listen to for calming, you know, when I need to write, you know, kind of sweeter scenes, shall we say. Somebody is apologizing for asking a question, but that's fine, Helen. Don't worry about it. If it's been asked before, I'm sure there are others like you who've not heard me answer it before, so I never mind answering a question twice. Oh, you're asking if so a lot of Helen has saying something that has been asked before, but Helen asks whether many of my characters come across as neurodivergent, and is this deliberate? And I will give you the answer which I have given before, which is it is probably accidental. I have not done the research, and it's not necessarily intentional, but I did grow up in fandom and in geekdom and around what at my age we called the weirdos. So we were the weirdos, we were the quirky ones. And now those people, many of them have realized that they are neurodivergent, or now we have the new categories and qualifies and monikers for all of this sort of thing, which at the time we didn't have. And the answer is I put my friends and the people I love into my books. They leak in no matter what I do, not necessarily intentionally, and mostly just because I love the quirks of humanity and I love quirky people, and that's who I surround myself with, and so they get into the books that way. So that's what happens. I also have a real affection for sort of grumpy, introverted characters. You'll notice that I tend to like one or two different, like analytical, grumpy people who tend to like sit at the outskirts of social structures and try to kind of analyze it because they don't quite know how to fit in. And that's just sort of like personal identity, but also people I've known. And then I also, on the other side of that spectrum, I do love, you know, the charming, grumpy sunshines. I mean, not grumpy, the opposite of grumpy, the other side of that equation. You know, I love the cute, excitable, social charmers. I have a real weakness for actors, shall we say, for dramatic types, for opera singers and the like. So I also really like colorful, very socially apt people. So all of these kinds of characters enter my books because I write about what I love, and that includes the people I love. So yeah. yeah. And the other thing I always say is the characters and the way I've written in them and what I have written is for you. It's for your readers. These characters are for you. So if you see themselves or the people you love in them, that's all I want. If you identify with my characters, that's wonderful. So if it's important for you to think of one of my characters as neurodivergent, then you should absolutely do so, because they're for you to identify with. That's what they're out there doing, is they're there for you to love as well, and to love you back, and to be there and to be comfort and support. So you can and should read into my books anything that gives you that back, that helps you. That, like, you know, for me, reading and books get me through the day. It's like, yeah. So I always assume chronic readers are very similar, and it's those characters that you love that help that and help you. So take what you need from them. They're not going to be diminished by that in any way. In fact, I think we'll all be added to because of it. Weird and quirky. Yeah. The odds is cute too. Yeah. Well, on that note, I think that's a wonderful way to end. Yes, I'm busy working on more characters for you to love, I hope. And I hope you have enjoyed the recent ones that I added to the Pantheon. I guess we'll talk spoilers next time for this series, so everybody go get caught up. And it's nice to be back. It's nice to see all your lovely comments once again. And I'll talk to you in December. Hopefully we'll all be getting through the holidays all right. I know it's a tough time for many of you. But meanwhile, happy fall. And we'll see you all next month.